Hey everybody, just a quick reminder that if you go to the main lesson website, The Art of Guitar, you can now take bass lessons as well. So it's The Art of Guitar and it's theartofbass.com too. And we're working on a drum section. So pretty soon you're going to be able to take all three for the same price, $10.95 per month. Okay everyone, enjoy the video. Every once in a while, the topic comes up about who actually invented heavy metal. And of course, a lot of people would say Black Sabbath, and deservedly so. I mean, when you first hear that riff, that opening riff off their debut album, it's hard to deny it. Some people like to say it goes all the way back to 1964 when the Kinks wrote this classic riff. Ozzy Osbourne actually said when he heard that riff, it changed his life, and it made him want to pursue heavier music ever since. Other people like to bring up In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida by Iron Butterfly, and when you listen to it, it's a killer album. But that song in particular, I don't really think heavy metal when I hear it. I think more like heavier psychedelic rock, if you will. Well, last month when I saw Paul McCartney live, they kicked into Helter Skelter, and a couple things came to mind. First of all, I was blown away by how heavy it was live. I mean, I've seen bands like Pantera, Black Sabbath, Slayer in concert, and here this 83-year-old guy, his band was just melting my face. It also brought up a concept I thought about a while back, when I was wondering about the origins of heavy metal, and I thought, you know what, the White Album came out in 1968, and Helter Skelter is on that album. And I wondered if that could have been the beginning of it all. At the very least, it was maybe the spark for heavy metal that Black Sabbath later came along with and dumped gasoline on. I know it's really easy when you hear those epic Sabbath riffs to think, there was nothing heavy like this before, 1970. But with this video, I want to at least put up an argument that perhaps it was Helter Skelter that kicked it off. From what I read, Paul McCartney made it kind of a challenge to outdo the Who's I Can See for Miles, and in the heaviness department, I would have to say he completely pulled it off. It's kind of funny when you listen to Helter Skelter to think that this song came from the same guy that would later put out that infamous Christmas song that we all kind of love to hate. So what I thought I would do was play parts of the song and show you why I believe this song lands in the heavy metal category. Let's go from the very beginning. We got that slide into that unrelenting dissonant part that just seems to stab you over and over again. That's like Korn level dissonance, and back then I wonder if people were wondering if demons were shooting out of their speakers or something. Then Paul begins to sing, and the guitar descends while keeping a pedal tone with the high E string. So the high E string stays while the other note descends. You might think I'm exaggerating at the end, how hard I'm hitting those last chords, but if you listen to the isolated guitar track, they're actually doing that. And by the way, during those chords, Paul is basically screaming over the top of it, so very metal indeed. Now the part that really convinced me. The other day when I listened to the isolated guitar track, I never knew this before, but I heard this weird bend before the chord. So it's an E major chord for most of the verse, but for the first time I noticed this open string bend that's very reminiscent of the beginning of Iron Man. And there's only a few ways to pull off this technique. First of all, you could do it behind the nut of the guitar. You could just push it to get that sort of sound. Or if you have a trem system, you can lift up on the bar to get that same effect. Now, if the Beatles did the behind the nut trick in the studio, like I think they did, that's pretty revolutionary right there. So one of the guitars is going... Since the Beatles never played this song live, sadly, that would have been so badass. I found some footage of Paul McCartney's band playing it, and you could see his guitar player actually do the bend. While this is happening, the bass guitar is just going nuts. and it's being played by John Lennon, from what I know, and he's playing what's called a Fender Bass 6. It's one of these awesome instruments that I would love to get someday. It looks like a guitar, but it's tuned down an octave. So it's essentially a bass guitar with 6 strings. It's really the most prominent instrument you can hear during the verses. It's kind of crazy. And I thought, what would it sound like if the guitars were a little louder and maybe chugging along like the bass? So just as an experiment, just for fun, I tried it. Here's what I came up with. Now that's pretty cool, but I am glad that they did it the way they did it originally. Behind all this, you have Ringo back there bashing away. What's great about it is he's doing like a metal beat because he's riding on the crash cymbal. Usually you play the hi-hat or the ride cymbal, but he's actually just bashing away at that crash, giving it this metal quality. And nowadays it's just normal for a metal drummer to bash away at that crash for a lot of beats, especially breakdowns.
I can see God.
Add to all this chaos the fact that the guitar tones are overly distorted and you've got this crazy metal masterpiece. It's kind of too bad that the guitars are so tucked underneath the mix during the verse, but during the chorus that all changes because another guitar comes in and they do the chorus together. You have this A power chord to A6, so you get this to this walk down. Then do the same thing in E, back to A, and so on. The fact that the bass does it with the guitar, that walk down, makes it even heavier and badass. Of course, Paul singing Helter Skelter over the top of that's pretty cool too. I looked it up and Helter Skelter actually means like disorder and chaos. To end the chorus, they actually go back to the dissonant idea. So they play 2 E notes and they bend one of them up about a minor third. So you get this. That kind of dissonance would make the band Tool proud, I would say. It almost seems like they're trying to break the string. Like when you play it, if you have that in mind, you get a really intense tone. Oh, that was crazy. Let's talk about the guitar solo. Now, it's not your typical metal solo. It's not real fast. There aren't like these squeals or taps or sweeps or anything like that. But the way it's played, I don't know if it was George or Paul who played it, but it gives off this real cutting effect. It's like this reverse guitar sound that you would hear in Revolver, except it's played forward. What makes it sound like it's reverse is the way they do pre-bends and then they cut off the notes a lot. So it gives this kind of quality, which kind of sounds like a reversed guitar if you've ever heard that before. But the solo starts off like this. And then you can hear Paul laugh a little bit before the solo actually kicks in, and it just makes it feel like it's this relaxed, heavy jam going on. They're all having a good time. Must have been therapeutic to be just bashing away like they were, you know? Then the solo comes in. This came out about a year before Led Zeppelin 1, but right at the beginning of the solo, Paul McCartney does this little vocal phrase that sounds a lot like Robert Plant. Then the song circles back to the intro with that dissonant walk down. They go through another verse, another chorus, and then they end with this just brutal jam in E. I forgot to mention this, but this is so cool. I think it's because of that bend on the open string that the E string's actually a little bit out of tune throughout the whole song. So you get even more dissonance just in general because the E string's just a little bit flat, so it gives this kind of... See, just enough to make a difference. Let's get back in tune here. I guess the jam went on for like 20 minutes and they did multiple takes of this song. So at the very end, it's very famous, but you can hear Ringo yell out, "I've got blisters on my fingers."
I got blisters on my fingers.
A lot of people might be like, yeah, it's a very heavy song, it's a very cool song, but it's not metal. Like Black Sabbath brought the aesthetic of metal as well and really established it. Like if you look at the album covers even, between the White Album and Black Sabbath's debut, you could definitely tell which album is more metal. By the way, that Sabbath cover used to haunt me. I saw it when I was young, my uncle had the album, and that witch lady always scared me. Later on, I found out that she actually looks like this. And if I would have known that back then, I would have had way less nightmares. And you can argue the White Album doesn't look very metal, right? But if you rewind 2 years to 1966, they actually released an album called Yesterday and Today that contains the infamous Butcher cover. I mean, look at that cover. It's crazy. Could you imagine people seeing that back then? Must have been chaos. It's an album cover I bet you Cannibal Corpse would even be proud of. I guess you could say the Beatles were heavy metal, but in spurts. So that cover, for example, Helter Skelter, if you listen to the entire White Album, actually, there's like a heaviness to it overall. Even the ballads and the blues songs have some sort of weight to them. And if you've ever listened to the song I Want You, She's So Heavy, it's actually off Abbey Road. I wonder if you'd agree that the end of that song is very heavy metal. It kind of sounds like the end of the world kind of chord progression, and it keeps repeating and repeating, and as it's doing so, it's building up. There's like this white noise that builds up in the background until it finally crescendos at the end and just stops, a lot like what a Nine Inch Nails song would do. Another tune that blurs the line is Revolution, the version where they have the really distorted guitars. This isn't nearly as distorted, but you know that song? And on top of that, John Lennon is screaming, and it's a bit of a distorted scream as well. And at the end of the song, he does it too. All right! And I would say, this might sound crazy, but I would put that up against a Pantera scream any day. I bet you Pantera fans are rolling their eyes, but that's just how I see it. Okay, so what do you think? Did I make a strong enough case to maybe persuade you that Helter Skelter could have been the origins of heavy metal? And like I said, if not just a spark in that direction until Sabbath came along with the flamethrower, let me know in the comments section what you think the beginning of heavy metal was. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will catch you at the next video. Bye-bye.